Hello, I am Mary Carnival, and I'm here to introduce our keynote speaker. But first, a question. Who here would like to experience joy? Raise your hand. In your work, in your life? Well, I have really great news. Our keynote speaker tonight strives to experience joy every day. She has enjoyed a 37-year career, has been a chief medical officer, a department vice chair, and currently serves as president of Cleveland Clinic, Euclid Hospital since 2019. She is the most dedicated leader I have ever met. Helping us today to create values, mastery, and understand mythical creatures. Please welcome from Cleveland Heights, Ohio, speaker, doctor, professor, admired leader, Dr. Teresa Dews.
Hello, everyone. Mary, thank you so much for doing this, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being here. You can see the title of my slide is Values, Mastery, and Mythical Creatures. And I have to tell you that I came to this title under duress because Kathy Boyle told me I had to have a title for my talk. Okay. I was just going to say this is just Women's Professional Staff Association Keynote, and I was done. So hopefully I will be able to communicate some of the things that I think about that led me to this title. But I have to start at the most important thing. Thank you for being here. This is so important as we celebrate Women's History Month, as we celebrate International Women's Day from yesterday. And I know a lot of you in this room, which is absolutely amazing to me. You are my partners, you are my friends, you're my work friends. I've had support from the people in this room over 3 decades of working at this institution. So I know that you have competing priorities. I know that some of you have children at home that you decided not to be with because you're here, or charts that you think that you have to close. And you have to close them. You do, right? But you're also here for fellowship, celebration, to be energized. The presentations that we've heard today, the energy that we have in this room, the leadership that we have here, the legacy that we have here and that we experience here, we're all a part of this, and it's so, so important. So with that, when you come here, as you've been here all evening, what is your intention? What is it that you want to leave with when you leave here? What do you want to take home with you? What do you want to implement? What do you want to put aside? For me, because I'm older, I have to write things down. Okay, so I'm a note taker, and I think it's really important to take notes. So if that's on your phone and we're taking pictures, writing it on the program, if there's something here that has resonated with you tonight, and I really think there should be because, I was sitting here in awe of all the things that have been done. I'm going to get to more slides than just the first one. Okay? So why am I here? Why am I here? Well, my knee-jerk response when I was asked to do this was, there's absolutely no way. No, thank you. I'm good. Okay? It took me 2 weeks to think about it and then agree to do this. So I had to decide why I was going to be here. What's my intention? So I'm here to share, okay? And I hope that by sharing, some of you will have some insights into what I value and ways that I have come about mastery, and then the mythical creatures. We'll save that for last. So when I talk about values, this is not some Webster definition of values. I'm really thinking about things that we work from, our origin story. So it's important to know your values, actually name your values. We work from them, they drive us. A lot of times we don't name them. It's important to do that. Know your value. That's a different perspective than just having values. Everyone has value, okay? Everyone is a worthwhile human being. Everybody is important. It's really important for you to understand that and also think of that, not only with yourself, but also with other people that you're working with. The reason that it is important is if you don't understand your value, how can you value someone else? And last, whenever you're doing an interaction, I think that it's important to try to contribute value. What am I going to bring to the table? In this meeting, what am I going to contribute? In this relationship, how am I going to contribute to this relationship? So, what's my origin story? I'm going to share with you some moments that have led me to be where I am. I'm going to talk a little bit about patient care and leadership here at Cleveland Clinic, because I am a lifer here at Cleveland Clinic. Like Mary said, I've been here for 37 years. And then I'm going to also talk about coaching and mentoring, because that has been a very significant part of my life as I've been developing. So I look at these moments kind of like a roadmap, and they're not the only moments, but I had to be selective because eventually you guys have to go home. So I'm going to talk about my lived experience with bias. So this is not a historical lecture. There's so much going on here related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm so proud of everyone and all the presentations. I'm so proud of you for this. I am going to step out there and be vulnerable to the people in this room, and I'm going to talk to you about Annie. I'm a very private person. For those of you who have been in any of my offices, you know I don't even have pictures of my family in my office. I don't talk about my family. I don't talk about myself. So I'm going to let myself be vulnerable. I am going to share with you. I'm going to talk about why I chose the Cleveland Clinic. And since I stayed here, I think I like it. I want to share a story. Some of you have heard this story. I'm going to share a story about Miriam and her bucket list. And then last but not least, I'm going to give some of my thoughts and experience related to leadership, including coaching and mentoring. So when it comes to moments, defining moments rewire our understanding of ourselves and our world. And that's from Chip and Dan Heath, who you guys are probably familiar with. But I think that this is important for how I developed as a person, and you may relate as far as some things that have led to your development. So I'm going to start with bias. I stand here as an African American, female, professional leader at the Cleveland Clinic. I am a rarity. It's getting better, okay? But I do have a unique perspective, I think. But I also have to say that through my life, through my interactions, through my relationships, I know that my story isn't unique. Everybody has a story, okay? Everyone has experienced things. But I just have to give you my perspective. So guess who this is, okay? I had to sneak this picture in somewhere. This is me and my sister. I've worn glasses since the 2nd grade, okay? Blind as a bat, okay? So I have to say that, my family story really begins with the 2nd Great Migration in the United States. So obviously, maybe not so obviously, we are part of the African diaspora. So we have very little information about our history before the Americas in slavery. But additionally, and I think that this is just an important nuance, and again, it really lends itself to my experience and my values, is that my family migrated, and it's hard to see in here, but there were 3 migration patterns of blacks in the South moving towards the North. So my family, we were part of that middle that migrated from Alabama as well as Kentucky to Cleveland. My entire family migrated. They severed ties to the South. They never talked about any of their experience or their lives when they were in the South. My family's life began with that 2nd migration. So just understand that severing and that historical, lack of historical perspective means that I've gotten so much from my current family. And it's very extended. I have a very extended family. They moved here for greater opportunity. They were very, very strong, very cohesive. And I have so much gratitude to the sacrifices that my family made in order for me to be here, the strength that they had, the love, the unconditional love that they taught me. And my parents and my husband are here. And again, it's with so much love that I grew up with. This is my family now. We've heard, a little bit about work-life balance and that type of thing. Throughout my career, because of the strong family ties, I've always had some type of work-life balance. Not all the time, but most of the time. So here's my life partner and best friend, David. So we were married even before. We've been married for 37 years, okay? And then my parents, my adorable grandson. And that's my brother and sister as well as my children there as well. Oh, and my mother-in-law. David, I snuck in a picture of Mom. So the reason that I want to talk a little bit about the bias is because as we are doing our DEI training, our bias training, we have to understand that in addition to our own personal experiences, it happens to everyone. So when my family moved here during that migration, they settled in an area that's south of Fairfax. Fairfax is where we are now. So about 2 Cleveland communities south is Mount Pleasant. The interesting thing about Mount Pleasant is that it was one of the first areas where African Americans were actually able to purchase home and have home ownership. Redlining is a huge issue. It really prevented the mobility of people, the people to be able, blacks and people of color, to get loans in order to invest in their homes, in order to move, in order to purchase additional homes. And in addition to that, people were prohibited from leaving one area. There was no mobility. So I tell people many times that when we're talking about neighborhoods, we have to understand that when we are leaving Fairfax or these other neighborhoods to go to our wonderful homes in the suburbs or in the country, that includes me, okay? We are able to do that because many of the people who are in these areas were not allowed to. They couldn't do that, right? That that led to our ability to have these established suburbs. So speaking of suburbs, in the 70s, there was school busing talked about in order to improve the educational equity in Cleveland. It was the segregation that was in Cleveland was deemed to be unconstitutional, and they were going to bus the students from the east side to the west side and vice versa in order to improve the segregation. My parents didn't want that for me or my siblings. They didn't want there to be an issue where they needed to go across town in order to take care of their children if something happened. So they moved to Cleveland Heights. Again, to put this in perspective, that was not an easy move. During the 70s, Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights were two of the inner city or ring suburbs that were purposely trying to end segregation and improve integration in those communities. It wasn't the government by any means. It was grassroots, it was women who were saying, this is not right and this is something that we can improve. So my family was actually able to move to Cleveland Heights and get a home in Cleveland Heights. Growing up in Cleveland Heights, and I'll tell you that story in a minute, I was an academic, a bookworm, right? However, in order to perpetuate the separation, there is a tracking system that was developed. So when I was going from junior high school to high school and talking to my counselor to set up my schedule, he kind of mumbled under his breath, "Oh, we'll put you in track 3. What's a track? What is that? Well, there's track 1, which is honors, there's track 2, which is advanced placement, track 3, which are the regular courses, and track 4, which is remedial. And he said, so track the 1 and 2 are, you get the same teachers, the same books, the same education, but track 3 is easier. So you may as well just do track 3. Well, I gotta tell you, even as a 9th grader, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I said, I'll take track 1 English and track 2 math. Let me try that. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. My mother had to take off work in order to go to the school and tell them that if my daughter feels that she can do the work, she should be given the opportunity. So there you go again, there's that opportunity. I just think that it's important to understand, and the reason that I have another map there is that I got an excellent education at Cleveland Heights High School. That's where I graduated from. When I was in my classes, I was the only black in class at a school that was 40 to 50% black when I went there, because I was able to get into those advanced placement courses. Some of these discrepancies still and disparities still are here today. And so that's what the blue map is, and that is where people will move their children out of some of these cities in order to separate, the education for their children. So now I'm going to tell you about Annie. So when we moved to Cleveland Heights, I was in elementary school, and Annie was a developmentally delayed classmate, didn't know her very well. But I knew of her. And when I was first going into junior high school, coming home one day, I saw Annie. She was alone, and she was crying. She was on the lawn of someone's home. I knew it wasn't her home. I didn't know where she lived, but I knew she didn't live there. She was confused, and she was upset, and she was lost. I have to confess that I was confused. I didn't know what to do. I walked away from Annie. I left her. So why would I tell this room full of my friends, my colleagues, this story? It's because this is a moment that changed me. Annie was fine. She was back at school the next day, smiling and laughing and being Annie. She was okay. I was a changed person. It was so hard for me to think through not knowing what to do, not being able to take charge. So in 7th grade, I really became a super bookworm, somebody who took charge of everything. That was recognized as someone who is a leader, and I also excelled academically. Of course, I haven't thought of Annie all of my life, but when we're talking about values, I can tell you guys that as I reflect on who I am and what I believe in and what I fight for, that Annie has had a huge influence on where I come from. For those of you who know me, who have worked with me, and know how stubborn I can be when it comes to, there was a really good laugh over there. Somebody's like, yeah, you're stubborn. How stubborn I can be when it comes to helping people. That's because there's a part of me that will never leave Annie alone like I did when I was 13 years old. So moving on, I think many people in this room was like, gosh, now I get her. I get her now. So there's the mastery. There's this idea of learning things, that pursuit of knowledge, the need for me to be at the table to fix things and make things better. So along those lines, I've kind of learned and picked up ways of doing things and call it mastery. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but it's pretty much what we're doing today when we're talking about our OKRs, or you're setting goals, or so many of the things that the WPSA members and the institutes are doing as far as career development. But it's really important to set goals. They can be the goals for tonight. What am I going to do? What am I going to get done? The 5-year goals, the 10-year goals. Learning, being open to learning, right? It being a continuous cycle. Practice as well as teaching. You learn when you teach. All of you know that this is an academic center, but practicing again and again and again really, really helps things. When I worked like I was employed there, but when I worked with the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine, that was one of the best things that I ever did. Hi, Ruth. Ruth was one of my physician advisor colleagues, as well as Kendall, here. And one of the things that I took from that program, in addition to the mentoring and coaching aspects, was the self-reflection. So I include that here, always taking a step back to think about, what have I done? What am I doing? How could I be better? Where can I make a difference? Validation, it's important to validate your information, as well as adjusting based upon all of these inputs, and then it's that circle again. You could put anything into this circle as far as the mastery. The point really is that you're doing this, that it's iterative, right? That you do it as a continuous cycle in your head or on paper, but I do find it helpful. You fill in the blanks as far as what you do. The reason that I talk about mastery is as I talk to people, as I coach people and mentor people, the people who are most successful are the ones who develop a sense of mastery. It doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean that you ever know it all. It doesn't mean that you are the unparalleled proceduralist. But it does mean that you're open to learning, you self-reflect, you continue to practice, you continue to teach. Okay? So that's what I like. So why did I decide to come to the Cleveland Clinic? Being here from Cleveland, going through all of the different hospitals, I have to tell you I was impressed the most with the type of training I could get at the Cleveland Clinic, being a tertiary center. We talk a lot about diversity, but the type of diversity that the Cleveland Clinic had at the time that I entered was more the international diversity, and I was really attracted to that. And that was not something that was prevalent in any of the other institutions. And I know we talk about patient focus here a lot, but that was something else that I noticed at the clinic more so than other places. And last but not least, as you've heard tonight, all of the resources that are available to you individually as well as a group, that was something I recognized, and I encourage you, okay, listen to Sylvia, okay, join up, get engaged, okay, request, get together, right? There are so many resources that are here for you. Now, I was coached not to paint the Cleveland Clinic with rose-colored glasses. So there also were challenges, some of which you've heard about today, and there's been a huge improvement with a long way to go related to diversity, equity, inclusion. But I have to say I'm proud of the organization for planting the seeds that in many years are going to make a difference. If you don't start now, then in 10 years, we're going to be having the same conversations. Changes and challenges in medicine, juggling priorities, and a lot of people talk about work-life balance. My insight into that is there really isn't any such thing. At any given moment, you have to decide what's the most important thing for you. Staying focused, that's something that I didn't necessarily do at the Cleveland Clinic because there were so many fun things that I could get involved with. It was like shiny objects. I did everything. Building support, that's what we're here for, okay? Engage in coaching and mentoring because it's here and it's available, and support each other, continue to do so, as well as the self-care, so the well-being that they were talking about. So in spite of going to college and talking to another counselor who told me not to bother applying to medical school, I gotta tell you, spoiler alert, I love being a doctor. Okay, there, I said it. It's out there. I'm a pain management physician, and I will compete with anyone in this room to let you know that pain management is the best specialty, hands down. Okay. So why do I love pain management? I really have a patient-centered focus, okay? So, bingo, Annie, there she's showing up again. And with that, there may be one or two people in this room that said, Teresa, I worked with you on a patient, you actually gave up on them. So I can count on one hand the patients that I got to the point and said, you know what, there's nothing I can do. That stubborn, tenacious aspect is that I'm always looking at what else can I do to help my patients. So it's rare that I can't figure it out. So that's why I reach across the table, I reach across the aisles, I call anybody up if I can't figure it out and say, I need help with this. I've been practicing for a little bit, and I still reach out and get help from all of you when it comes to doing what's right. My patients have taught me so many lessons about their variability, about their resilience, their intrinsic value. I have had the honor of taking care of families over the many decades that I've been in practice. My patients taught me about that higher love, agape love, trust, and forgiveness because Being in practice for 36 years, yes, I have made mistakes, and I've had to look at my patients and say, I tried my best, but I made a mistake, and I have to let you know. And the trust that the patients have, thank goodness that's, few between, rare, right? But again, it happens. The patients can be very forgiving, and they trust us with their lives. I also came to understand how important it is for me to express to my patients how I feel about them. So I just said that to you guys. It's important for our patients to know how much we care. So when a patient comes to see us, we can't assume that they know that we're glad that they came. Sometimes we actually have to tell them, I'm glad you're here. I'm happy to take care of you. And guess what? Sometimes I actually cross the line and I say, I love you back. I know this is a women's conference, but I have to give a little shout out to Dr. Thomas Browyer, who is one of my mentors in residency training. He helped me recognize the difference between your vocation and your job. That, in my opinion, has saved me from burnout over and over and over again. There's so many aspects of our job that we don't like, but we have to do. But if we remember what we're really here for, believe it or not, that doesn't erase the sucky parts, okay? It doesn't, but it makes them much better. And last, I'm still having fun. I had fun today. I had a patient, I had a clinic full of patients. No, my work's not done either. But I've had the pleasure of singing karaoke with my patients. Badly. Okay. I have a t-shirt collection from my patients. And there's quote of the day, which I think you've seen. Yeah, okay. I have a whiteboard in my office, and I'll write the patient quote of the day, something that I find impactful, entertaining. Patients can be very funny. So here's my t-shirt collection. So it started with mistakes happened that my one patient wore to his procedure appointment. And we all gathered around him and said, what the heck? Why this shirt? Why today? And we had a really good laugh about it, but it became this trend where patients would, I think, spend way too much time thinking about what shirt am I going to wear to my procedure appointment, right? And then there's the big reveal, right? So everybody gathers around, and then the patient rips off their blanket, okay? And then there's the t-shirt. Some of them are kind of risque. So the bikini one, kind of dicey, but again, they're just a lot of fun. So I have a message, okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit about Miriam. Miriam is a patient that I took care of, reached out to a partner to do some manipulation therapy. I did some injections. She was fine. I hadn't seen Miriam for many years. Miriam called me out of the blue, sometime, and, just to talk. Now, for many of you in the room, when you get one of those phone calls from a patient that they just want to talk, you're almost like cringe, like, oh my gosh, what is this going to be? How long is this going to take? So of course I returned Miriam's call. So Miriam told me, she said, Dr. Dews, I called you because I knew you would call me back. And I just want people to just pause and absorb that for a second, that you have a patient who would judge who she would reach out to based upon whether or not they'd get back to her or not. So we had this lovely conversation. Since I'd seen her, she had been diagnosed with metastatic cancer, And she was in the process of deciding, should I go through some more aggressive chemotherapy, or should I go into hospice? And so we talked about what her values were, what was important to her. She didn't come to any decisions. It wasn't my role to talk about her cancer treatment. I just listened to her and heard her out. And it was a good conversation. We actually had a good laugh, and she became one of my quotes of the day. Her quote was, I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to go through hell to get there. So we had a really good chuckle about that. The next week, she was on my schedule. And I have to say, when I saw her name, I was thinking, how did you get in? What was your trick? Nobody can get in to see me. How'd you do that? So, she was, at the end of the day, which was great, and we had a great conversation. And she wanted to continue the conversation. She wanted to talk more. But she also had a message that I think she wanted to communicate, and I'm using this forum to communicate her message. She said she was concerned about us, physicians. She was a caregiver for many years, and she's seen the transition of how doctors were overworked, were juggling too many things, were stressed, and were burning out. She was concerned about us. Not about me. She was concerned about all the caregivers. She was also concerned about the caregivers who are not physicians, and also the physicians making decisions for expediency without taking care of the patient. She actually stated that she thought doctors should fight back, right, and change things in order to be better. So we had a really good conversation, about that. She talked about physician burnout. Okay, she was concerned about that. The reason that I'm bringing this up to you is, number one, this is important to us as well. We just had an entire evening talking about caring for each other and burnout and being better. Our patients see it too. And they care about us and what's happening to us. So a lot of the things that we've heard this evening, I think, are super important as far as moving forward and getting better. So thank you, Miriam. I hope that I did some justice to what you told me. Thank you. So Cleveland Clinic leadership, coaching, and mentoring. I'm sure many of you are looking at your clocks, but you can see I'm getting close to the end. So success in leadership. We're always talking about the glass ceiling, and I've had my episodes of going after things and trying to move on and to have leadership and positions in the organization. For those of you who know me, and hopefully even just from listening to me this evening, it's not an ego thing for me. I really, really want to help. That is what I do. That's why I'm here. So I've had some success. I've been the vice chair of pain management. I've worked as the chief medical officer at Hillcrest Hospital, and currently I'm the president of Cleveland Clinic Euclid Hospital. I am so honored to have been able to be in these positions, really so that I can help people, because that is the most important thing to me. So my question is always, how can I help more people? Some of the things that I've learned, and this is not all-inclusive, however, the importance of teams is unparalleled. The Cleveland Clinic does teams better than anybody else, okay? But that is super important. Change happens. We experience, you see I'm in my gear here for the pandemic, okay? And things are going to change again. Control versus influence. And so I've had to relinquish control over things in order to be more influential, in order to get things done. Information and communication is important. That's something that I continuously work on, and I think that's my area where I have lots of opportunities for improvement. And then learning from success as well as from failure. Every time you try something, you have that potential for things working out and sometimes things not. So as president of Cleveland Clinic Euclid Hospital, we've had a lot of success. I have wonderful teams, okay, and many of whom are here. But it's not just Euclid, it's also working throughout the entire system and having the advantage of working in a system. Okay, this is extremely important. The reason that I have this picture with all of these people here is because if you look, you can barely see me. You can hardly find me because it's not about me. It is about the teams, it's about the people, it's about all of us working together and all the things that we can do and do together. Oh, I felt really emphatic about that. So, I know you guys are just dying to understand what I mean about mythical creatures. So, mythical creatures are the things that we compare ourselves to. And it is very much associated with imposter syndrome, perfectionism, okay? And it can be a double-edged sword. In some ways, comparing yourself to these mythical creatures can motivate you, can inspire you. Sometimes, though, it can actually be used against you. It can be this moving bar that you never actually meet up and you can never actually aspire to or make. So I think that it's really important to understand that. So an example would be someone who is going after a particular job or they're looking for a particular position and looking at the criteria for that position, but holding up the people who are in those positions to a level of perfectionism that no one could ever meet, that they don't even meet. The people who are in those positions don't even meet. But we hold those positions up, or we hold people up, so that they're not even real, they're not even human anymore. I've observed this not only in myself, where I think, oh my gosh, I could never do that, but also in talking to a lot of people, right? So I think that it's important to pull back and understand that mythical creatures don't exist. Okay? Coaching and mentoring, as I come to a close, are very, very important. And this, again, relates to that mythical creatures. We all have similar challenges and opportunities. So I spoke to some of the bias and the experiences that I grew up with and that I've had. But everyone in this room has had challenges during their life. That's how we grow. That's how we get to where we are. If anybody's had a perfect life, then you're welcome to raise your hand and we can applaud, but I would doubt anybody's going to do that. We have to verify information. There have been so many times that I've been told that I'm not good enough. Not for my family, okay? My family is very strong and supportive and I walk on water. But outside of that enclave, right, there have been times where people have taken or have underestimated me. Not from any other way or knowing me at all. Internal control versus external influence. What I've learned from coaching a lot of people in mentoring is that we have to understand that difference, okay? The only thing that I truly have control over is who. That's it. I have no control over anyone else. Can I influence them? Yes. Can I influence them by doing the right thing, being a good example, setting a good example, being consistent, being honest, being fair? Can I influence? The answer to that is yes. The self-reflection muscle, again, pulling in from the Lerner College of Medicine, that's where I learned that concept. It's important to just continue to think through, reiterate, look at where you come from, but also validating from external. It can't all come from inside. Learning from the past is important. It's also important to be present, and it's also important to strategize for the future. So that's something else I've learned. And then last but certainly not least, and this is where Mary was talking about during her introduction, is that joy. Having fun during the ride. So this is something else that people will know about me, is that I enjoy almost every moment of every day. It's actually pretty annoying. I know it. I know it's pretty annoying. So, for those of you who don't know me, I actually had a van that I converted, a Sprinter van, that I converted into a she cave that I drove around town, and I drove it to work because I could, and it was fun. So that big car, if you looked out of your window and you saw that big Sprinter silver van, Dr. Dews was probably in there. And you see, I could work in there. I could have my desk set up, right? It had granite countertops, maple cabinets. It had a Hive Wi-Fi. It was awesome. I ended up having to sell it, but I'm going to get another one, so... Just you wait. And that's a big thing, right? That's a big thing. But I also take joy in little things. So I don't drink out of styrofoam because that's not fun, right? I drink out of a pretty cup. Doggone it. I have a puppet that looks like me. I've brought the puppet to work. I've entertained children with my puppet, for patients. I have chastised colleagues who wanted to cancel their schedule at the last minute. I've pulled out my puppet and I've chastised them. Imagine the look on his face. And even seeing a picture that just expresses how I feel in a moment. In my office, if you come around and look at something that I can only see, I may have a picture of somebody just holding up their arms, doing a power pose. Because guess what? It's fun. I can have someone in my office telling me something horrible, and I can look at that picture and it will make me smile inside. Then I can pay attention to what the problem is, and I can assist that person with fixing the problem. Those are big things and little things, but I also have to say, there are the most important things, okay? They are the people, they're the relationships, okay? My husband sitting here is my best friend, lifelong friend. My parents, yes, you can go ahead and give him applause. He deserves it. He actually puts up with quite a bit for me, okay? Those are my children, my family, my sisters, okay? But then also my work family. So the people who work with me know that I can actually be a little, fun-loving sometimes. I can also be very, very rigid when it comes to something that I think is right and wrong. I'm working on that, okay? I'm working. But this is my family. So moving forward, I hope that during this time, and I'm sure that I ran over, but I hope that I'm able to communicate to you the importance of finding joy, your personal life, as well as your professional life. It's so important. Okay, what we do is so important. And it's important at work, but it's also important at home. Align your North Star, know what your values are and name them and live by them. You're going to live by them anyway, whether you like it or not. For me, as the president of Euclid Hospital, that means that I'm really concentrating on advocating for Euclid, okay? So again, I know I can be annoying, but I knock on people's doors every day advocating for my hospital, the patients, and the community. I'm also interested in developing programs that can be expanded to the rest of the organization, because at Euclid, we can take care of things, we can fix things, and then we could expand it to other areas. We've done it, and we can continue to do that. So as you adjust and lead through all the changes that we're going through, continue to do that to get the best outcomes. And then be wary of perfection. Don't let people use perfection against you. Don't use it against yourself. Okay? Give yourself a little bit of a pass. Believe it or not, we are good enough. So I'm not going to repeat these as the final thoughts, but I hope that during this time that I was able to at least let you guys think about some of my perspective when it comes to values and mastery, and then, you know, the idea of imposter syndrome and perfection. And just remember that, you know, as I said, Annie is always there, and she makes anything that you would think of as impossible, possible. We never really have to walk away from something that's important to us, and everything is important to us. So with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for your time, your attention, your friendships, your partnerships. I'm really humbled by by knowing all of you over many, many years, right? And working with you, and I'm looking forward to so much more. Thank you. So